let's continue talking tech, the broader market, what you need to know as we hit highs today on the NASDAQ and the S&P. Daniel Newman's with us, CEO at the Futurum Group. Good to see you.
Good to see you.
So, you know, it's exciting when people are seeing new highs. I think we had our 34th high close for the S&P. Don't quote me, but the point is that we're seeing a lot of new highs, and people feel good about that. But it's narrow. It's narrow base. We were just talking about that. Not everything's hitting new highs.
It is really narrow. I think I just read something on the way in here. It said something like 17% of S&P names actually outperformed the S&P in the last 30 days. 17%, right. So about 87 of 500 companies, meaning that the rally is actually very narrow, considering we're hitting high after high after high.
And so people love tech, but it's really tech that has helped, and maybe a few other names. Do you love tech?
It's not all tech, Nicole, and I mean, I think that's probably one of the most important things. Like, we've seen this incredible run for NVIDIA. It's gotten a ton of attention. I've done more interviews on one topic than ever, anything before. And you're saying, where else is all of this energy? And so, you know, I've spent some time thinking about this. I think you saw, or you may have seen, Sequoia put out a note last week where they were talking about the $600 billion problem with AI. Mm-hmm. And that is basically that, you know, everybody understands the GPUs or the sell-in right now. So NVIDIA is selling in everywhere. They're selling to all the big hyperscalers, these new AI hyperscalers, largest enterprises buying tons and tons of AI chips. But what else? Where's the revenue from the rest of the industry? Why are SaaS companies getting hammered? You know, it's not all tech that's doing well. How is AI going to help broader industries? And that's what we're spending a lot of time at the Futurum Group trying to figure out right now is what industries are going to grow through the adoption of AI. And so what I've been talking about, Nicole, are these multi-network effects. So, for instance, the first network effect, everybody pretty well understands with AI. It's NVIDIA, and then it's Supermicro and Dell. I think you were just talking about Supermicro, right?
Yeah.
And it's maybe it's Broadcom, it's networking gear, the things that people really understand well. And then there's these second network effects that I think haven't really gotten much credit yet, and that's the CRM companies, the Salesforces and ServiceNows, the SAPs and Oracles, that you're going to have to consume AI there. And then the last part, Nicole, if I may here, is just it's ultimately the industries. It's retailers, manufacturers, automotive companies. Where are they going to start to be able to determine value from all this AI? Because if we can't start to get value, this hundreds of billions in CapEx, people are going to start being like, what are we doing?
Right. You know, we think about AI, and I just think about, like, you know, full self-driving or something, but then it becomes all the chips, the data centers. To your point, the rollout of all the other things that are related to AI and all these companies that are talking about. I mean, we just talked about Corning talking about AI. Campbell's Soup at one point talked about AI on the call. It's just not what we would have expected. So there's certainly this bullish sign, I guess, for more and more related. But when is AI really the best since sliced bread, you know? And I think the foundation of the question is what people are now saying, you know, is AI really going to keep everything afloat?
Well, I think the second half is going to start to take a more practical, more pragmatic view.
Yeah.
We expect that NVIDIA, you know, you've seen it even got a downgrade last week, but there's some normalization where people are going to start to understand the demand. I think it's still going to be palpable, but it's starting to have some competition. But we're going to start to ask those questions. What companies, Corning, Campbell's Soup, large retailers like Walmart, where are they implementing AI in their business that's going to start to consume all of this spend from AWS, all of this spend from Microsoft and their data centers? Who's buying it, and how are they getting measurable productivity gains in their business? And then, of course, there's kind of this whisper on, you know, all the CEOs that I talk to, Nicole, on the regulars. There's a lot of prune to grow. Meaning companies are looking at AI to find efficiencies first.
Right.
And no one really wants to say that out loud, but I think you're going to see some of that first, especially because there's some recessionary data out there, and as good as the market looks, you know, it's still a little unclear. And the election and inflation and interest, Nicole, lots of things happening that don't necessarily mean everything is all good in the market.
Yeah, I mean, we had on Susie Orman recently. Her, you know, she's all about finance and personal finance and all that. And she's sort of warning folks about unemployment. And her call was, I think it was 34% unemployment in the next 10 years. I mean, just that unemployment was, I mean, I don't know, it was shock value to say it's going to be over 30%, but the point was that it was going to be very high as a result of AI. So that's worrisome too. That can't be good for the economy if unemployment's going to rise. I don't know if it'll rise to that, but you understand what I'm saying.
Yeah, I think there's a little bit of uncertainty right now about where jobs are created. We're starting to see where digital labor, chatbots, automations can help improve workflows and maybe create efficiencies and even remove some headcounts inside of companies. But with every digital revolution and industrial revolution, we have seen more, not less, jobs created. It's less clear this time. It's a bit more opaque because you're starting to look at things that AI can do and you're like, well, if it can pack the boxes, it can build the houses, it can, you're seeing all these things, it can drive the cars for us. What are we going to do? So that's a question mark. Having said that, I think in the nearer term, I think what we're up against right now is we still got these significant macro issues. Inflation is high. Go to the grocery store. I don't care what the Fed is telling us. Go to the grocery store, try to rent a home, buy a car. You feel it. And tech is deflationary. And I think that's why it's such a good trade for most people, is because SaaS software, AI, these things are deflationary. They make companies more productive and more efficient, and they do it with less resources.
You have so many names within the notes. You're talking about software as a service. What's the final takeaway? People want to put money to work. How are they going to make money in this environment with all that we've discussed? What names are you watching? What groups? Where should they put some money to work?
Yeah, so I'm looking at those network effects that I talked about. So there's a couple of really interesting ones are those that help chip makers with their intellectual property. So I really like companies like Synopsys. I think they're a very interesting name because chips need to be developed faster. You're seeing these one-year cycles. We hear a lot about memory. So, Micron took a bit of a hit after its earnings, even though the numbers were good, but we're not going to put all these AI chips out without high bandwidth memory. And I still stand by my assessment. This goes back a couple of years that I really like the ServiceNows, the Salesforces, because I think this is where companies will consume AI. Over the years, you'll see LLMs start to abstract graphic interfaces and stuff, but you're talking decades out, kind of like robo-taxis. Everyone loves Tesla right now, but it can't be for the robo-taxis because that's not going to happen in a year. It's going to be years.
Right.
SaaS is where people can consume AI right now, and if they can figure out how to charge for this, Nicole, I think they become really interesting.
Yeah, and that's the question too, monetization of AI. I mean, they haven't quite no one really quite fully understands how that will work, right? You mentioned that you covered NVIDIA so much, more than probably any other company. In fact, you recently wrote an op-ed. With NVIDIA at the current levels today, do you still think it's a buy for the long term, or you would wait for pullbacks? What do you tell folks when they say, but I still like NVIDIA?
Yeah, if I'm an investor, it's hard to not like its moat. 97% of the GPU market. It holds, our market data on chipsets suggests that it has a long-standing lead. And it's not just hardware. It's hardware, it's software, it's libraries, it's frameworks. And it's got all the partnerships. You've seen Jensen Huang on stage with every tech company, it seems, on the planet over the last 6 to 12 months. And that's really, really sticky. But I do think there is competition coming. I think Intel, I think AMD are legitimate. Don't write them off yet. And of course, the hyperscalers are building vertical integration, and that even includes Apple. They're going to build some of their own. So I like the companies like Marvell and Broadcom that are helping companies develop their own AI chips.
Oh, that's interesting too. Thank you so much. Daniel Newman of the Futurum Group. Great conversation about tech and the names that people love to hear more and more about. They won't give them up so fast. That's true. Thank you so much.